Welcome to the latest iteration of Nick's Yemen Roundup, covering the 2-week period between 4 and 17 August 2025. Apologies we weren't able to put out an edition last week. I fortunately did have some paying work I needed to do, and while I love doing this, it is a lot of work and is currently not being paid. So apologies if at times I do have to prioritize some other stuff going on. Maybe we'll look into Patreon or other sort of services that could maybe make this a little bit more worthwhile. But right now, I'm just happy to do it because I like following events in Yemen, and I like putting out good information for folks who are interested in following events in Yemen. But we will see if I'll be able to put out another edition next week or if it'll be another 2 weeks. But anyway, thanks for your patience and everything along those lines. Just a little bit about me before we get started. If this is your first Yemen news roundup from Nick Brumfield, my name is Nick J. Brumfield. I have an MA in Arab Studies from Georgetown University and over a decade's experience analyzing Middle East politics professionally. I am regularly quoted in international media as it relates specifically to the Yemen conflict, but I do work on the countries throughout the region. I have experience in project and data management, GIS capabilities, as well as political risk, business intelligence, and legal consulting. All of this is to say that if you're interested in my work and would like to reach out to discuss, the possibility of contracting with me or collaboration, media inquiries, anything really, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. That's the best place to reach me for professional context. I am, of course, also on Twitter and Blue Sky for those interested, but for the serious professional context, please reach out at that email. If you're unable to throw work my way, that's absolutely fine. Just please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video and any other videos that you like of mine. Really getting the name out and getting the work out is one of the primary purposes of this product, and I very much appreciate any support you can give it. So with that, we can go ahead and get started with what people are actually here for, which is what's been going on in Yemen over the course of the past 2 weeks. And boy, there was a lot. Normally for a week, I have roughly, I don't know, somewhere between 40 and 60 pages worth of notes that I put together to prepare this call. This week I had, for the last 2 weeks, I had something like 120, 125. So it was quite a bit. Starting off with international relations, first, as it relates to the United Nations, we did have some activity from the international community this past week. On 11 August, we did see the Office of the Special Envoy for the Secretary General for Yemen's Military Coordination Committee hold a series of ceasefire planning meetings in Amman, Jordan, which is where they normally do this. This military coordination committee is ostensibly the body that's responsible for coordinating between Houthi and Yemeni government-aligned forces to uphold a ceasefire in Yemen. Only the Yemeni government aligned kind of side attended those meetings in Amman. The Houthi sort of aligned forces were not present. They most often are not. We did see also on 12 August, UN Special Envoy Hans Grunberg give his monthly address at the UN Security Council, in which I have to say he was probably uncharacteristically critical of the Houthis. Normally, he's maybe a little bit critical. He doesn't necessarily hammer them all that much in terms of, obviously when they do certain violations or when they detained a lot of UN workers, he's called that out. But he generally, I think, tries to maintain a relatively neutral posture in these statements. But he was really going after the Houthis this week. We did see him criticize the Houthis on fortifications in Hadeda. We did see him criticize the Houthis for printing the new rials that they've been rolling out over the course of the last month, as well as, of course, the ongoing shipping attacks and the continued detention of UN employees, I believe, as well. So yeah, now he was kind of coming out swinging for the Houthis, and the Houthis kind of fired back. But before we talk about that, we'll talk about international affairs from the Yemeni government side. A lot going on here across a lot of different Important countries to talk about. We did see the United Kingdom engage with various officials, including Foreign Minister Dr. Shea Zindani, who met with UK Ambassador Abdul Sharif in Riyadh. And discussed the UK's ongoing technical support in terms of capacity building, which is a big thing that the UK has been rolling out over the course of the last couple months and will continue being funded, I believe, for another 3 years. On 7 August, we did see ROYG Minister of Defense Mohsen Eldari meet with Sharif as well in Riyadh and discussed ongoing support for the Navy and Yemen Coast Guard, which are obviously very big priorities in terms of talking about interdicting Houthi Iranian weapons to the Houthis. We did see on the Russia side on 5 August, Oil Minister Saeed al-Shamasi met with the Russian Deputy Head of Mission Gubarev, I'm not sure how to pronounce the Russian, in Aden, kind of just discussing the need to reinvigorate especially the economic relationship between Yemen and Russia. In terms of China, we did see on 12 August, Minister of Defense Diary met with the Chinese Charge d'Affaires Xiao Qing, as well as the new military attaché from China to Yemen, Colonel Liu Chao in Riyadh. This is a picture of them here on the right. We also did see, of course, a lot of media this week following the seizure of drone components sourced from China at Aden Port on 6 August. China kind of came out and denied that they had any connection to the drone components or that they weren't supplying them, and that they monitored goods going to the Houthis or Houthi-held areas that could be used for military needs, and they rejected the recent U.S. sanctions against Chinese companies for supplying the Houthis with weapons components and that kind of thing. I believe some oil smuggling as well, perhaps. Again, there's a lot going on in terms of bilateral relations here with regards to India. We did see Presidential Leadership Council head Rashad Al-Alimi meet with the Indian ambassador to Yemen, Khan, in Riyadh. Probably the big thing to come out of that was he brought up the need for preferential prices for wheat imports from India. India produces a lot of wheat in Yemen. Historically, I believe it's been one of the major suppliers for humanitarian wheat to Yemen, particularly following, I believe, the interruption of supply from Ukraine and Russia during the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Getting access to preferential prices for wheat imports was a big sort of thing for Yemen. So they are following up on that. In terms of Saudi Arabia, we did see Presidential Leadership Council member and STC President Idris al-Zubaydi receive the Saudi 802nd Task Force Assistant Commander Al-Otaibi in Aden. He's been there for a week or so now. Not sure what they're doing, but whenever Saudi military officials show up and are meeting with ROYG officials, I'm like, okay, that's something to pay attention to. You don't see that all of the time, at least publicly. And then last but not least, of course, with regards to Yemeni government relations with the United States, we did see a number of engagements. Same day that he met with the Chinese Charge d'Affaires and military attaché, Minister of Defense Diary, did meet with the new U.S. military attaché to Yemen, Sean Newcomb, in Riyadh. We also did see Charge d'Affaires, U.S. Charge d'Affaires to Yemen, Jonathan Pecha, seemingly make a visit to Cairo, between 13 and 15 August, during which time he met with PLC member Tariq Saleh, which the picture of that meeting is here on the right, who's normally based in Mocha and the UAE. He does seem to maintain a presence in Cairo as well, where a lot of the former Yemeni kind of ruling elites that aren't based in Yemen are based out of. So you do have a lot of, for instance, parliamentary leadership based out of Riyadh. And we did see on 15 August, Deputy House Speaker for Yemeni government-aligned parliament, Shadadi, meet with U.S. Charge d'Affaires Pecha. He's also GPC aligned. And last but not least, we did see on 17 August, Pecha meet with ROYG Foreign Minister Zindani in Riyadh. Moving on over to international affairs for the Houthi movement, we did see on 12 August, following that pretty harsh, but true, I mean, it wasn't like he was lying or anything, criticism from UN Special Envoy Grunberg. We did see on 12 August the Houthi Foreign Ministry issue a formal statement stating that they were, essentially threatening to terminate the UN Special Envoy to Yemen after this briefing, essentially accusing him of being incredibly partisan, not neutral, and he needs to sort of stay in his lane. And they defended, recent military deployments to Hadeda, for instance, as defending Yemeni sovereignty against all of the recent attacks from Israel and the United States. They defended their currency measures, and then they also criticized the Yemeni government's issuing of a new, I believe, smart ID card that they're rolling out in a bunch of different places. As I said, as trying to split the country administratively and kind of creating a lot of administrative difficulties. So they really don't like that. We also did see on 13 August, the Houthi-aligned Foreign Minister Jamal Amr met with the Hamas representative in Sana'a, Moaz Abu Shamala, and that meeting is pictured here on the right. That's something that happens from time to time. Nothing too much in terms of coordination or something. I don't think that come out of it, but that is a thing that they like to play up. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Yemeni government perspective, and there was quite a bit this week. A lot going on in the cabinet and a lot going on in the judiciary. So we did see on 6 August, Prime Minister Salim bin Barak chaired a cabinet meeting, discussed, as it has several times before, the economy amid this dramatic recovery in the Yemeni government-aligned rial we've seen over the course of the last few weeks. That during that meeting, the cabinet emphasized the recent ban on foreign currency transactions, which we'll talk a little bit more about in the economic section, as well as approved the construction of an oil refinery and free port in Hadramaut amid the ongoing protests, which I'll talk about a bit more on the next slide. We did see another cabinet meeting take place during the reporting period on 13 August, with bin Barak chairing that. They seem to be having these meetings weekly on Wednesday, so that's good, particularly considering that bin Barak's immediate predecessor, Ahmed Awad bin Mubarak, was nobody wanted to meet with them, and there hadn't been a cabinet meeting for months. So this is good in terms of at least maintaining some semblance of a responsible government. And we did see on 15 August, Prime Minister bin Barak leave Aden. He's been based out of Aden for the last couple months, I believe, for Jordan for a private visit. Not sure exactly what he's doing for that. He may have been based. I don't want to say he's based out of Jordan, but yeah, it specified in the official state media that it was for a private visit. He's not there on official business, at least according to the story that they're selling. The other major development, at least as it kind of relates to this kind of more bureaucratic central Yemeni government story, is the ongoing dispute between the Southern Judges Club Aden branch, which is a union of essentially judicial workers, judges. It's across a couple different unions, but they've been agitating essentially for the independence of the judiciary and increased living standards amid deteriorating economic conditions. I reported on this a couple weeks back and kind of considered possibly it could be a Southern Transitional Council sort of a gambit to increase its influence in the judiciary, but that's absolutely not the case here. So what this is grassroots protesters sort of at the Aden branch level, agitating against kind of STC aligned or at least Southern Judges Club aligned judges who they helped install during their last more politicized kind of agitation against the judiciary back in 2021 to 2022 for essentially increased living standards and accusing the Supreme Judicial Council of being punitive against grassroots activists, that kind of thing. So so since July they've maintained a strike more or less in the Aden courts that have shut down the courts in Aden's temporary capital. And this is very much seemingly a grassroots labor action. The Supreme Judicial Council has maintained that this is illegal, that this is against the rules. They've continuously called to reopen the courts and referred protesting judges to investigation. And then we did see on 17 August, the Southern Judges Club headquarters, kind of Southern Judges Club Central, condemned the Aden branch strike as illegal and said that it was lifting the strike. Whether or not that continues, I think remains to be seen. But yeah, this got I did an analysis on this for a client within the last couple of weeks, and yeah, it's very nitty gritty in terms of like this is very much kind of the leadership versus rank and file, I think, and how it is differentially affected by their positions in the hierarchy. And so it was very, very interesting. On 7 August, we also did see Presidential Leadership Council head Alimi, who's based in Riyadh right now, and as well as PLC member Bahsani. Bahasani met with the leadership of the National Coalition of Political Parties and Components, headed by Ahmed bin Dagher, also based in Riyadh. In Riyadh, not too much to come out of that, but it's Alimi. Show Alimi's doing something. But yeah, so that was kind of central Yemeni government stuff. Now we're moving on to kind of the provinces where we've seen a number of protest kind of concentrations over the course of the last several weeks. Obviously, the first and largest and most notable, such that it's even gotten international coverage, which isn't often something that happens in Yemen, is in Hadramaut. And so this is something that we covered, I think, yeah, even more than 2 weeks ago, sort of in the last reporting period. It was kind of the start of these protests in late July. We did see them continue seemingly up until at least 10 August. So yeah, so this spread from Mukalla, which is in kind of cities along the coast and along the STC-aligned coast, all the way to Wadi Hadramaut, where kind of Islah-aligned forces and other Saudi-backed forces maintain control. So we did see large-scale protests in Sayoun. We did see large-scale protests also in Tarim on 7 August with security forces seemingly aligned with the first Islah-aligned first military region, using live fire to open this road into the city of Tarim and Wadi Hadramaut that injured 2 protesters. This came following a protester, I think, being killed during the last reporting period. At the same time, we did see PLC head Alimi meet virtually with the Hadramaut Parliament bloc, or Hadrami bloc in Yemeni parliament, to kind of discuss how to address Hadramaut's needs. We did see PLC member Farag al-Bahassani meet with the 2nd Military Region Commander Omar al-Yamani in Saudi Arabia following his detention by UAE-backed forces, under accusation of being, having connections with the Houthis. It was seemingly due to his familial connections to the Hadramaut Tribal Alliance head Amr bin Habrish, who the UAE-backed forces have not been liking over the course of the last year or more. And Bahasni, dismissed these rumors that he was in Al-Yamani, was transferred to Riyadh amid, health concerns, or essentially they just wanted to get him out of Mukalla, so they sent him to Riyadh 4 months ago. We did see protests resume kind of along the coast. They kind of died down there for a couple days, but then they returned following the return of Hadramaut Governor Mabhout Ben Madi, who, to be completely honest with you, this was a surprise to me. I was one of those who kind of thought that he was on his way out in terms of his being governor of Hadramaut. He was kind of MIA for the first several days of those protests. He's been in Saudi Arabia for the last 3 or 4 months, amid rumors that the Saudis are not very happy with him because he's kind of become more UAE aligned. But he did return to Mukalla, maybe after a stern talking to, maybe he was there in Riyadh for so long for health concerns. It's unclear. But he returned on 9 to 10 August. That we saw protests resume. A lot of these protesters are calling for Bin Madi's ouster across the province. He did his first thing to do when he got back was hold a meeting with security and military leaders. And over the course of the following days, we did see reports from pro-Houthi media that we did see the KSA-backed Hadramaut Tribal Alliance in the Wadi and UAE-backed forces on the coast kind of cracking down on these protests and is securing the situation, I guess, from the perspective of the powers that be. We did see on 15 August anti-STC media, so I believe both Houthi and kind of Islah-aligned media reports that the UAE was bringing in forces from Aden, Dale, Lahej, under the command of Abu Ali al-Hadrami, to Bromefa to kind of can control the situation. That's very tabloidy, so don't take that as like a given. But like a common narrative in narratives about kind of Hadramaut politics is that the STC, which wants to sort of include Hadramaut as part of the southern state, is STC enemies are constantly saying the STC is trying to bring in forces from other parts of southern Yemen into Hadramaut, where Hadramis are very much like, leave us out of your shit. We want to kind of maintain all of the security forces, all of the institutions under our own control in Hadramaut. So you can only appoint Hadrami commanders, for instance, that kind of thing. So take that with a grain of salt, but it's worth noting. There's a lot of static coming out of Hadramaut, but the protests seem to have died down over the course of the last week. But who knows? Maybe they'll come up again. That said, we are seeing this recovery of the Yemeni rial. That hasn't necessarily resulted in decreased prices across the board. It has seemingly resulted in decreased prices as it relates to the levers that the Yemeni government can control. So we are seeing fuel prices go down. We are seeing other Yemeni government-controlled prices go down. They are trying to impose price controls on everything, but it's mixed in terms of its success. So perhaps some of the structural factors that were driving this are lessening in their intensity, but we shall see. We also have in Taz. So there's Hadramaut, which has gotten a lot of attention, but there's also been an ongoing kind of protest movement in Taz, particularly as it relates to the city's water crisis. So between 6 and 13 August, we saw various protests, one of which kind of did result in some kind of violence, like rock throwing, that kind of thing, over a lack of electricity provision, which is a constant in Yemeni government-held areas, as well as water provision in Taz. So Taz, it's a very populous city. It has seemingly depleted its groundwater, most of its groundwater reserves, and bringing in water from the outside is very difficult due to various checkpoints and infrastructure issues. And so water itself has gotten very expensive in Taz. So you can see children here protesting on 11 August against a variety of things, but the lack of water, the water crisis is a major thing. On 16 August, we also did see Taz city pharmacists go on a partial strike amid the Yemeni government's attempts to implement price controls. So the pharmacists are saying that they're being forced to lower their prices, but the pharmaceutical companies that they buy their products from are not lowering their prices. So they're effectively getting squeezed in the middle there. And so, this has been a common criticism of the price control attempt by the Yemeni government to bring prices down for ordinary Yemenis. Is that you're forcing merchants who purchased goods or who are purchasing goods at the old prices, and a lot of prices are not coming down. A lot of merchants are just not lowering their prices because they purchased their goods under the old exchange rate and they don't want to sell them at the new exchange rate, or they're afraid of losing money if the exchange rate fluctuates too much. So there's a lot of confusion going on. The Yemeni government is seemingly trying to enforce price controls. They're sending out a lot of field visits, at least, and saying that they're closing down shops and bakeries and stuff for not conforming to the prices. So they're seemingly trying to bring it down to try to maybe get these protests to die down a little bit, but it remains. Moving on over to politics and governance from the Houthi movement perspective, the Houthi authorities are continuing in their 3-month crackdown on seemingly like intellectual types in Ib government, which we've been tracking that on this product for the last several months now. So between 6 and 15 August, we did see continued reports of them detaining people in Ib and the neighboring Taz governorate as well. On 13 August, on 14 August, pro-Yemeni government media reported or kind of framed this crackdown as linked to essentially the Houthis' attempt to crack down on General People's Congress aligned people who want to celebrate the 26th September revolution. celebrations, not necessarily just GPC aligned folks, but the 26th September is the revolution that overthrew the old Yemen's old imamate, which is the Houthis are seemingly trying to reconstitute as kind of like a theocratic monarchy. So there are, it's unclear exactly why they're doing this. They like rounding up people in Ib. That just is a place where they really like to crack down a lot. But yeah, so we are seeing that being framed as a 26 September revolution. They normally round up several thousand people, or at least over 1,000 people around these 26 September celebrations, because it's kind of become the holiday that you come out and you celebrate as a symbol of defiance to the Houthis, because the Houthis don't want people celebrating this, and so yeah, that possibly is related to that. We also did see, as it relates to kind of the old non-Houthi regime, on 13 August, the Houthi forces staged a military parade in front of Sheikh Hamir al-Ahmar's house in Sana'a amid this kind of GPC crackdown that we reported on last reporting period. So Houthis still very much in control, but they're always very paranoid about this, always rounding people up, always wanting to put people in their place. We did see on 14 August, Abdul Malik al-Houthi give his weekly addresses, and again, almost entirely dealt with Palestine and other kind of regional developments as it relates to places like Lebanon and Syria. We did see on 16 August, Deputy Prime Minister Jalal al-Ruwayshan discussed the need for institutional restructuring under, I believe it's called the Reformation and Rehabilitation Agency, or something along those lines. But he was talking about restructuring the government to make it more efficient and moving prisons from the Ministry of Interior to the Ministry of Justice and Human Rights. Not clear if that's reflecting a power kind of fight within the Houthi-aligned cabinet, but something to check out if you're interested. And we've also of course, seen the Houthi-aligned authorities organizing celebrations in honor of Mawlid, or the birthday of the Prophet Muhammad, which is what they always like to really make a big scene, putting up decorations and everything for that. Moving on over to military and security behind the front lines in the Yemeni government-aligned areas, starting off in kind of southwest Yemen around Aden, Abyan, and Lahej. We did see an Abiyan governorate continued suspected AQAP activity, Al-Qaeda in the Arabian Peninsula activity, with on 7 August, pro-Houthi media reporting an AQAP IED attack in Mudia had killed an STC-aligned fighter. That's normally the place where we see AQAP attacks. On 11 August as well, we did see STC-aligned forces claim to defuse an AQAP IED, as well as shoot down an AQAP drone in Mudia. I believe that's the first drone downing I've seen in a while, if ever. We do know that AQAP does have drone capabilities. They've published this, but we don't necessarily see them use it very often. So that is interesting there. Moving on over to Lahej Governorate. Let me get my annotation tool here. Kind of along the coastal area here to the west of Aden, we did see a number of clashes between various armed groups, ostensibly or at least formerly aligned with the STC under the rubric of the Giants Brigades. The commanders of both of these institutions or armed groups are members of the Subaiha tribe, or tribes, which are kind of resonant to this particular area of Lahej Governorate. So it was very kind of local, intricate, esoteric kind of dispute. But we did see on 8 August, essentially the Giants Brigade 2nd Brigade was sent from Aden to this area of Lahej to clear essentially smuggling checkpoints or essentially to gain control of the road from the Giants Brigade 9th Brigade, led by his name's Kaluli. I forget his first name, but essentially this was due to Kaluli refusing to hand over command of hand over equipment and command of the 9th Brigade after the STC dismissed him, after he refused to be redeployed to Shabwa. And so we did see a conflict between them on 8 August that the 2nd Brigade under Hamdi Shukri seemingly won, but that didn't stop things. Later on 16 August, we did see Kaluli-aligned tribesmen attack members of the 2nd Brigade near Ras Al Ada, but tribal mediation was able to secure a truce. So there's a lot going on in terms of potential STC attempts to move in on the Subayha tribal area, which is not necessarily, I mean, they have people from the Subayha in their ranks, but the Subayha haven't necessarily been the most receptive territory for the STC. In fact, it's where the Saudi Arabia draws a lot of its nation shield forces commanders from. So interesting, at least. And then in terms of Marib Governorate, we did see on 8 August the Nahed and Al-Atash tribes in Hadramaut. So we're talking the area of Hadramaut kind of along this sort of very porous desert region with Marib. There's a major road sort of connecting Marib to Al-Abr here. We did see the Nahed and Al-Atash tribes in Hadramaut say that they were going to blockade the Abida tribe, which is kind of resident in this northeast area of Marib, following one of tribesmen's kidnapping of the Atash tribe by the Abida tribe, ostensibly. This happened 2 years ago. There were some negotiations. They broke down, and then these tribes ostensibly said that they were going to move in and blockade. We also did see on 14 August pro-Houthi media report that the Saudi-backed Nation Shield forces, which recently, I wouldn't say recently, within the last year, took control of the Aber Junction, reportedly killed a tanker driver in Wadi Abida. So they were kind of probably along this corridor here, which resulted in the Abida tribes mobilizing and forcing the Nation Shield forces to hand over the suspect of whoever is suspected of killing them. Didn't seem to be an institutional decision, more like a personal thing, which is known to happen. Of course, we've covered this particular area of Marib. It's a very restive area. The Abida are constantly agitating. There's various bandits that are sort of operating there. People say AQAP operates there. So it's one of those areas where you do see a lot of stuff happening, even if it's maybe a little bit more low level and doesn't necessarily get reported on all the time. Moving on over to military and security from the front lines perspective, we did see mostly this week, there weren't too many major clashes. The main thing to note was just various visits and kind of developments as it relates to the Sada front. We did see on 11 August, pro-Houthi media report, Saudi military fire did kill a Yemeni and injured an African migrant in Munabit district, which is something that seemingly happens, according to Houthi reports, on a weekly basis at least. We did see on 14 August, Yemeni government Minister of Defense Mohsen al-Da'ari chaired a meeting of the 5th military region in Midi. Even this is along the kind of Saudi-Yemeni border, and these red areas are kind of controlled by ostensibly Yemeni government-aligned militias or armed forces. And so we did see Minister of Defense Da'ari kind of give a tour. So he was in Midi on 14 August, and then up further north along the Razaman axis in Sada on 17 August. We did see also on 17 August the Houthi-aligned 6th military region, which is responsible for this big chunk of northern Yemen, did hold meetings with the governors of Sada, Jalf, and Amran to, coordinate, prepare for Mawlid celebrations, that kind of thing. Possibly also because, as a symbolic thing, because Da'ari was on the border that day as well. Moving on over to military and security from the Israel-Houthi conflict. A continuation of reported Houthi attacks on areas of Israel. So, between 5 and 17 August, multiple Palestine II and missile and drone attacks, most of them seemingly on Ben Gurion Airport, but also on Haifa, Negev, Eilat, and Beersheba. Israel, so the drone attacks in particular, Israel didn't comment on. It didn't seem like they did anything. But the missile attacks did occur, seemingly. Israel claims to have intercepted all of them, and nothing major occurred from that, but just a continuation of the kind of Houthi campaign of attrition just to wear people down. It's something that they did against Saudi Arabia for several years, and they've been doing it against Israel for well over a year now. In terms of airstrikes, we did see, following all of that, on 17 August, the Israeli Navy, which has deployed missile boats to the Red Sea, launched 2 strikes on Hizyaz power station in Sana'a, reportedly taking the generators out of service. That said, most of Sana'a isn't run on a central power station system. Most of them are run by local community smaller plants, generators, that kind of thing. So its general effects is very limited. They've hit Hizyaz several times. It seems to be that, much like with the strike on Hodeidah, right? Like the strikes on Hodeidah, they don't know what to hit. They don't have intelligence to kill a Houthi leader or something like that. So they're hitting the highly visible civilian infrastructure that they can. Maybe the Houthis are using it for some military purpose, is what Israel claims, but they're hitting what they can hit. Moving on over to maritime security, in terms of Houthi shipping attacks, no attacks reported during this reporting period, but we did see on 6 August the Houthi-aligned Humanitarian Operations Coordination Center issue sanctions against 64 ship owners for violating, what they call their Israel naval blockade, and essentially saying that your ships, for these 64 ship owners, can't come within the Red Sea, Bab el-Mandeb, Gulf of Aden, that kind of thing, or we'll attack them. And so they are kind of saying that they're going to attack. They haven't conducted attacks since those attacks in early July. We did see on 9 August, the Houthi-aligned media, well, not just 9 August, throughout the last reporting period, but the Houthi-aligned state media issued several stories essentially accusing Egypt and Turkey of siding with Israel, trading with Israel. Here's a graphic for an article purporting to show 72 trade trips between Turkish and Egyptian ports and Israeli ports on 16 August. So they are increasing their rhetoric against Turkey and Egypt. Egypt, of course, recently signed a really big deal with Israel, I believe, for natural gas provision. So whether they're going to start targeting Egypt and Turkey, I think it remains to be seen, but it's a possibility. And so they're definitely in the crosshairs. We also did see on 14 August the Humanitarian Operations Coordination Center say that they're kind of rolling out an easy pass for ships wanting to pass through the Red Sea. They say that if you're not one of the 64 sanctioned ship owners, you're going to have safe passage. And if you want a confirmation that you're a safe ship, you can offer, submit a safe transit request to make sure that you're not on our list. Most ship, it's kind of maritime intelligence, maritime risk management folks are saying, do not email these people because you're just going to give them yourself as a target. We'll see there. In terms of illicit commerce, a lot sort of happened. We did see, particularly relating to that Chinese drone shipment on 6 August that the counterterrorism unit seized in Aden port. This included drone components, jet propulsion systems, I believe wireless communications systems. China denies supplying these systems. They say that they're monitoring their supply, but it's not like they're trying to give it to the Houthis, is what they say. We did see on 9 August anti-Houthi forces intercept cranes to offload, seemingly to be used at a port to offload container ships at Hodeidah, which a lot of Hodeidah's cranes have been damaged by the Israeli airstrikes. They seized these kind of seemingly en route to Hodeidah in Lahej Governorate. And we did see on 11 August, the Aden Free Zone Security Director Jamal Dayan was dismissed from his position following the standoff between Port Security, STC-aligned security belt forces, and the counterterrorism unit around the Chinese drone component shipment. There was institutional bickering between them, and he wouldn't let the security belt forces in. And so now he got the sack there. Moving on over to humanitarian and economic issues, humanitarian affairs. In terms of humanitarian issues, We're looking at 12 August, UNOCHA Coordination Director Rajasingham briefed UNSC. Not too much to report from that. He did call for more support amid uh, very drastic funding shortages and shortfalls. We did see on 17 August, Aden authorities are preparing for the holding an economic conference in the coming period. This is seemingly an international conference to be attended by a variety of international actors to raise money to support the Yemeni government. So we will see if that comes through. And then really the big humanitarian issue this week is displacement. So we saw a massive surge, seemingly. I don't know if we could call it a surge, but a lot of migrants from the Horn of Africa, primarily from Ethiopia, crossing from the Horn of Africa to Yemen. We did see on 3 August a boat carrying 200 migrants capsized off Abiyan, leaving 94 at least dead and 32 rescued and dozens missing. A couple days later, on 8 August, a boat carrying 250 Horn of African migrants broke down off Shabwa, and 7 died of thirst or hunger before it was able to be rescued off the coast of Shabwa. On 15 August, Shabwa security forces arrested 120 migrants landing at Rudum. So just a lot. So we're like, 750 or you have 5 to 700 migrants just sort of coming over. And so this is being reported on as a big surge by Yemeni government-aligned media. On 16 August, the security director for Abiyan Governorate, Kazemi, claimed to have uncovered a human smuggling network with links to the Houthi or to officials in Sada Governorate. So implicitly with the Houthis, but yeah, so that's a lot going on there. Moving on over to humanitarian economic issues as they relate to infrastructure, quite a bit going on this week in terms of telecommunications infrastructure. We did see on 5 August the Yemeni government report that it had opened its sales points for Starlink devices in Aden. These are the first Starlink devices that people can legally buy in Yemen. They've been buying them in Yemen for years. A lot of people like that Starlink because it's faster internet than they can get. And it's also not monitored and controlled by Houthi-aligned authorities in Sana'a, who control most of the country's telecommunications infrastructure. On 11 August, we did see Houthi authorities seize a large number of report that they had seized a large number of Starlink devices that they alleged were being used in espionage. The Houthis, of course, because they want to be able to keep people on their telecommunications network, and because they're afraid Starlink devices will be used for espionage by the U.S. government, which is, of course, closely linked to Starlink. Do not like them being used in areas under their control and have conducted a bunch of campaigns to try to round them up. This is like the 3rd or 4th wave of campaigns. And we did see on 11 August, the Yemeni government said that it was planning to transfer telecommunications revenues to Aden. It's unclear exactly what they mean by this, if they mean just the telecommunications revenues that, are linked to telecommunications infrastructure in AdenNet, or if they're also going to try to maybe kind of go after the sort of funding structure or something of Houthi telecommunications infrastructure, and the Houthis control most of it, remains to be seen. But I mean, that would be a big lift, but it would also be in keeping with the ongoing kind of sanctions that they've been the Yemeni government has been supporting against the Houthis from the United States and elsewhere. In terms of air infrastructure, we did see the Yemeni Board of Directors meet in Riyadh on 7 August and approve the purchase of a 5th plane. So the Yemenia, despite all of the issues it's been facing over the course of the last several years, including the destruction of 4 of its aircraft in Israeli airstrikes way back in May 2025, has been purchasing new aircraft or trying to arrange for the purchase of new aircraft for a little while now. Between 8 and 15 August, we did see Yemenia receive a new Airbus A320 named the Alsan in Amman, Jordan, and then it flew to Aden. Here's a picture of it arriving in Aden. And we did see on 17 August, Houthi authorities call on the UN to reopen Sana'a International Airport, which has been closed since those Israeli airstrikes in May 2025. And even though Yemenia has planes, they don't necessarily want to send them to Sana'a because they may get destroyed by Israel, but also because the Houthis have seized planes before and they don't necessarily play nice. So we will see there are reports, rumors perhaps, that the Houthis are preparing or trying to buy two airplanes from Oman for operations, but that would require approval from Aden-based authorities, and we'll see if that happens. In terms of road infrastructure, we did see on 12 August pro-Houthi media reports that truck drivers had started to strike on the Aden-Zinjibar road over the kind of reinstallation of levy checkpoints where they have to pay tolls to non-state armed groups, more or less, which is a constant issue in the Abiyan corridor. And then on 13 August, we did see the Aden refinery report that it had begun producing asphalt for use in road construction as part of its return to operations under orders from Prime Minister Salim bin Barak over the course of the last couple of months. And if the resumption of operations at the Aden refinery would be pretty big if they're able to pull that off. Last but not least, in terms of humanitarian and economic issues, relate to banking and currency. So a lot happened with regards to banking and currency. So, of course, as we reported on in the previous reporting period, we have seen the Yemeni rial appreciate significantly in Yemeni government-held areas over the course of the last month or so, whereas prior to, before it was at something like 2,900 against the dollar to 3,000 against the dollar. It's now come down to around 1617 to 1633, 1650 against the dollar. This has been pretty dramatic. And most of the Yemeni government's kind of moving stuff around has been trying to be able to draw on this to improve living conditions in areas under their control and political stability. There is concern that this is going to be a transitory, move, that it's not necessarily going to be sustained because of, in terms of structural economic factors such as incoming foreign exchange or a bunch of other stuff. It's just not there to sort of maintain that much of an increase in value, according to some economists. But they're trying, and everyone's saying that they need to do more to sustain this. So a lot of what happened with regards to banking and currency this week was essentially the Yemeni government trying to find ways to sustain this. Starting off, though, on 4 August, we did see pro-Houthi media reports that the U.S. Treasury has sent a team to Riyadh to supervise the CBY Aden. The Houthis, presented this in a very nefarious, the U.S. is controlling the Central Bank of Yemen and Aden story, but the Central Bank of Yemen and Aden has also said that it has been cooperating with the U.S. Treasury, particularly in trying to establish ways that to allow the financial sector to operate across Yemen without allowing funding to go to the Houthis. So that seems more likely the story of what's going on there. We did see throughout the week the CBY Aden take a number of steps to try to essentially be able to control and regulate foreign currency to sort of be able to finance imports. So we did see on 4 August, the CBY Aden restricted foreign currency sales for personal purposes at $2,000 per transaction. We did see them meet with various stakeholders and approve an import financing mechanism and regulations. I believe it's called the National Committee for Regulation and Imports, I believe, in CFRI. And we did see on 10 August reports that the CBY Aden has begun receiving banking and transfer requests to ensure transparency, currency stability, and the financing of imports, transactions, that kind of thing. So it's very much kind of increasing its grip on the financial sector in a very big way, seemingly to cut down on currency speculation, but also to prevent the Houthis from using areas, the Yemeni government-aligned banking sector to allow things to move through into Houthi-held areas. So we did see between 11 and 17 August, the Yemeni government finance the ministry ordered the closure of all government accounts at non-CBY banks, and also ordered exchange companies to close government institution accounts and move all funds to the banks. So a major concern has been a lot of Yemeni government revenues haven't actually been going to the Central Bank of Yemen and Aden. They've been going to other institutions that have been able to use this liquidity to speculate on currency, and it's been very unregulated and very, unsystematic. So they're trying to crack down on all of that, and they've suspended or revoked the licenses of dozens of exchange companies over the course of the last couple of weeks to try to enforce this, to clamp down and kind of impose a system, perhaps, on that. We did see on 12 August, the Yemeni government attorney general banned the use of foreign currencies in domestic transactions. And we did see on 15 August, pro-STC media reported that the U.S. was preparing to take steps against widespread financial and monetary corruption in ROYG-held areas. Again, as this kind of attempt to clean up, systematize, and place under the CBY in the Yemeni financial sector, from a U.S. perspective, probably in large part to cut funding to the Houthis, but also to shore up the financial position and stabilize the rial. Whether that succeeds, I'm not an economist, I can't say, but I will say they are doing stuff. Like, for a very long time, they weren't doing anything, and this is something, at least. So it has been interesting to watch. On the Houthi-aligned side, on 13 August, the CBY Sana'a began destroying 360 million Yemeni rials worth of 50 rial banknotes. This is part of their currency replacement scheme that they announced the last couple months. They're also doing this with the 200 rial banknotes. That is going to increase the financial division of Yemen into essentially two monetary blocks. But yeah, so that is it. So that is all I have from me. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any questions, please feel free to put them in the comments. Again, if you want to reach out to me professionally, please feel free to reach out to me at info.nickjbrumfield@gmail.com. I look forward to your correspondence. And please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. We very much appreciate any support you can give us. But until next time, folks, have a good one.